Hey guys, it's John from Album Review TV. It's time for a soundtrack review for a film that's upcoming that I'm very excited about, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire soundtrack. I'm a huge fan of the first film and the first soundtrack. Already have my tickets to see the movie when it premieres this Friday, or if you're watching this in the future, then I watched it a while ago. This time around on the soundtrack, they got even more artists that are just having recent commercial breakthroughs and recent successes, a lot of cool indie artists to be a part of this record. They've got a Lorde on there, they've got a Monsters and Men, the Lumineers, and they've even got seasoned veterans like Christina Aguilera, who I've never honestly really listened to, but she actually did a really good job with her song We Remain here on this soundtrack. The Weeknd is here on the album, someone that I've never listened to either, someone I've heard a lot about, but I've just, I've never heard more than like 2 songs from him, period. He's featured on a track with Sia called Elastic Heart. Diplo is also on that song in terms of production. And then we have his solo track that's on here, and it's called Devil May Cry. It's actually one that ended up impressing me. Imagine Dragons appear on the soundtrack, as they do pretty much every soundtrack these days. I think this is their 5th soundtrack appearance, and their debut album came out last year, so they are just really hopping on that train with let's be on every soundtrack and take every offer we get, I guess. Not slamming it, because I've actually gotten some songs I really enjoyed from that band out of there. Monster is one of my favorite tracks of the year, and that was for a video game soundtrack, so I feel like some people just discredit soundtracks as just being, having too closely to follow a certain guideline, but really these artists are taking these songs, especially on this soundtrack, and just making them their own, writing from a character's point of view, like Gail's song from the Lumineers, or else Capital Letter from Patti Smith, where she writes from Katniss's point of view, kind of like Taylor Swift did with the Safe and Sound song on the first soundtrack. You've got Shooting Arrows at the Sky by Santigold, and then Atlas by Coldplay. I did a track review of that, but that one just is a really cool one that could really be interpreted for anything, but it also definitely applies to the Hunger Games world and Catching Fire. It's just, you carry your world, you're carrying a map basically. It's all about that, and just basically how a map can be just your whole world carried in your pocket, and just seeing the world, viewing the beauty in it and the downfalls with it. It's just a really powerful song, and it really got Coldplay back to their piano-oriented rock roots. It was a really mellow song, but also a very powerful one at the same time. One of my favorites on this soundtrack. Elastic Heart would have to be my overall favorite though. It's got more of an electronic style to it, but it never gets too intense or feels like it strays too far away from the vibes that the rest of the album puts off. And it's just a very powerful song. I never really listened to Sia too much before she was featured on a couple of songs like Titanium with David Guetta, for example. That was a very successful song, and I heard this one and was just kind of blown away by it. I'm also really impressed once again with Lorde here on this soundtrack, as she appears with her cover of the Tears for Fears song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That song was originally a little bit, up-tempo, a little bit upbeat. I haven't heard it in a while, but I went back and listened to it, but just to compare the two. And she took this song and just really slowed it down, made it a little bit darker and eerier, and gave it a really cool twist. We Remain is kind of anthemic in terms of just hanging in there and staying tough. And I liked Christina Aguilera's appearance here. I didn't know how I would feel about it, but it actually turned out being very enjoyable. Who We Are by Imagine Dragons, while not one of my overall favorites, I would still say it's a very solid entry. I really like the drums and just kind of how they drove this song, and Imagine Dragons kind of have been known for that sometimes. It's not necessarily the fact that it's just all over the place insane drumming, it's just that it's got these driving big drum beats. And if you know Imagine Dragons, you know how seriously they take their instrumentation and that sort of thing, and their production, and I think it was definitely up to par. Mirror by Ellie Goulding is another one that I'm really enjoying. It almost sounds a little bit like Losing My Religion by R.E.M. at some parts to me. I really like just kind of the vibes I'm getting from the keys and the minimalistic production and parts of the song, and just how it breaks through with a little bit more force at times. It's got a little bit of everything, and I am enjoying enjoying it very much. Silhouettes by Monsters and Men is definitely what you would expect from the band. It doesn't stray from their catalog at all. If you enjoy Of Monsters and Men and some of their even calmer material, then you will definitely be into this song. However, it's not one of my overall favorites. Gale Song by the Lumineers would be one that I'm just kind of on the fence about. Along with Shooting Arrows at the Sky and Capital Letter, I really respect that they got Patti Smith, sometimes she's referred to as the godmother of punk, to appear and record a song for this soundtrack. But it's not something that I'm totally into song-wise, but I definitely still respect it. There's just a few songs that feel a little bit just too slow and feel like they don't really keep up the pace, even though they are telling solid stories. I just can't get into them and access them as a whole. There are many, many good songs on this soundtrack though, and I'm very impressed with it, just like I was the first one, although I think I'm enjoying this one a little bit more. It's a 4 out of 5 from me. What do you guys think of the Hunger Games Catching Fire soundtrack? Are you a fan of the films? Let me know in the comments section down below, and of course let me know what I should review next. My upcoming videos include my top 50 songs of the year that'll be released in December, along with my top 15 albums of the year like I always do every year. So make sure you subscribe, hit that like button if you enjoyed the review, guys. Thanks for your support, and as always, Album Review TV, beyond the reviews.